Breaking news. DC locals don't warm up to Zelensky at all. Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine, left his country for the first time in 9 months to give an emotional joint address to Congress. For what it's worth, considering the hostile reception he received on his second wartime visit to Washington on Thursday, the 2-minute standing ovation he received from Democrats and Republicans seems like a dream. In context, President Biden's promise to stand by Ukraine for as long as it takes is in jeopardy. Dozens of Republicans took advantage of Zelensky's visit to ignore Ukraine's requests and make fun of its wartime leader, casting doubt on the efficacy of his personal appeals. Pressing issues. 6 Republican senators and 22 Republican representatives led by Representative Chip Roy, R. Texas, and Senator J.D. Vance, R. Ohio, sent a letter to the White House on Thursday voicing their opposition to Vice President Biden's request for $24 billion in additional aid for Ukraine. Zelensky met with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, R. Califf, in private, but McCarthy ultimately turned down Zelensky's request to address Congress in a joint session. "We just didn't have time," the controversial lawmaker explained to the press. As Republicans try to avoid a government shutdown, they are considering caving to pressure from conservative hardliners who are refusing to allow a vote on funding the Pentagon. Representative Byron Donalds, R. Florida, a member of the Conservative Freedom Caucus, told reporters, "There's no money in the House right now for Ukraine. To put it bluntly, now is not the time for Zelensky to be here. This mystery." An anonymous Ukrainian source told Axios that Zelensky's meeting with McCarthy and other House members was frank and direct. According to the source, Zelensky was somewhat buoyed by the legislator's words of encouragement, but he left Capitol Hill very realistic about the state of the House. McCarthy gave a public, impassioned defense of the Ukrainian war effort when confronted by a Russian reporter in May, but his views may not matter much given his precarious position as the leader of the House Republican Conference. Between the lines, Zelensky was let down by more than just Republicans. The ATACMS long-range missiles, which would allow Ukraine to strike well behind Russian lines, were not provided to Ukraine by the Biden administration. However, the decision was a letdown for Ukrainian officials who had hoped their request would be granted after hearing that Biden is not taking it off the table in the future, as National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told reporters. As tensions between the two close allies have escalated over grain imports, Poland's government has announced it will stop sending arms to Ukraine. On the other side, support for Ukraine continues to have the backing of the White House and the majority of senators. During a private meeting with all 100 senators, Zelensky allegedly discarded his prepared notes, according to a report by Maryland Democrat Chris Van Hollen and published by Axios. As one commenter put it, he spoke from the heart, and the message was clear. "We cannot waver at this moment, and any wavering would be a win for Vladimir Putin and his war of aggression." According to Van Hollen, multiple senators, mostly Republicans, consulted Zelensky about how to justify increased funding for Ukraine with their constituents. However, they were not implying that they were opposed to giving more aid to Ukraine, Van Hollen said. The first U.S. Abrams tanks will arrive in Ukraine next week, as announced by Vice President Biden during his meeting with Ukrainian Prime Minister Zelensky in the White House Cabinet Room. Anti-tank missiles and air defense technology are part of the new $325 million military aid package he announced. Politico reports that the Pentagon has made preparations to ensure that training on American weapons and tactics will continue in the event of a government shutdown on October 1. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, DNY, said to reporters after meeting with Zelensky, "There was a single sentence that summed it all up, and I'm quoting him verbatim. It was stated, if we don't get the aid, we will lose the war." Reporters asked Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, at the beginning of Biden's extended meeting with him if he thought Congress would approve additional aid. In his absence, Vice President Biden provided an answer, saying, "I have faith in the wisdom of the United States Congress. There is simply no way out."